It was a bright, sunny afternoon. I had just grabbed some lunch, and I was walking down the street, minding my own business. It was one of those perfect days. Blue sky, people out and about, cars passing by. Everything felt normal, safe. I remember thinking how peaceful everything seemed. It's funny how your mind does that, lulls you into a sense of security. I turned down a side street, the same shortcut I always take. It was a little quieter, fewer people, but I'd walked this route so many times I could probably do it blindfolded. That's when I felt it. A hand, right on my shoulder. My heart jumped into my throat. I turned around and there he was, this guy, standing way too close. No mask, no weapon, just this dead serious look in his eyes. I didn't even have time to process it before he spoke. "Give me your phone." Just like that. No yelling, no threats, just those 3 words, said so calmly it was chilling. I froze. It's crazy how fast your mind races in those moments. Should I run? Should I yell? But there was something in his voice. I knew he wasn't messing around. I handed over my phone. My hand was shaken, but I didn't say a word. He didn't either. He just took it, turned around and walked away, like it was nothing. Like we hadn't just shared this terrifying moment. I stood there, in the middle of the street, stunned. People were still walking by. Cars were still driving past. No one had noticed. In the middle of the day, in broad daylight, I had just been robbed. And life kept moving around me, like nothing had happened. I always thought things like this happened in dark alleyways or late at night. But no, this happened to me in the middle of a sunny afternoon. Broad daylight. It's strange how quickly it all goes down. One minute you're walking, thinking about lunch, and the next, everything changes. Stay aware. Stay safe. Because sometimes danger doesn't wait for the dark. I was just going about my day. Nothing special. It was late afternoon, still light outside, and I was heading home after running some errands. My hands were full, one with a bag, the other holding my phone. The street wasn't crowded, but there were enough people around to make me feel safe. I don't even remember hearing him come up behind me. One second I was checking my phone, and the next, bam. He grabbed me, hard, before I could even react. He had one arm around my neck, yanking me back. My body froze up, panic flooding my brain. I tried to scream, but his grip tightened. My heart was racing, pounding in my chest so loud, I couldn't even hear the sounds around me anymore. "Give me your wallet," he growled into my ear, his voice low but dangerous. My mind went blank. I didn't know if I should fight, scream, or just do what he said. He yanked harder, and I could feel my knees getting weak. I knew I didn't have a choice. I had to survive this. I fumbled for my wallet with trembling hands, barely able to think straight. I handed it over, hoping that was it, that he'd just take it and go. But it wasn't enough. He snatched my phone, too, pulling it from my hand like it was nothing. Everything happened so fast, yet it felt like time had slowed down. My legs were shaky, my breath shallow. He loosened his grip and shoved me forward, like I was nothing, like he didn't even care. He took off, disappearing down the street, blending into the crowd. I just stood there, catching my breath, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I looked around, hoping someone had seen it. Someone would come help, but no one did. People walked by, cars passed, but it was like I was invisible. I felt this mix of anger and fear all at once. How could something like this happen? And just like that, in broad daylight, with people around, you never think it's going to be you, until it is. I was mugged. I didn't fight. I didn't even scream. I just handed over my stuff, hoping it would all be over quickly. And now, I can't stop replaying it in my head. You hear stories like this all the time, but nothing prepares you for the moment it happens to you. It doesn't matter how tough you think you are, or how safe you feel. When someone decides to take what's yours, they don't care about the time of day or who's watching. Stay aware. It's not always in the dark corners that danger finds you. I always thought I was a good judge of character. I trusted my gut, trusted the people around me. That's the thing about trust. It's comfortable. It makes you feel safe. But sometimes, you don't realize when someone is taking advantage of you until it's too late. I had this friend, Jake. We'd known each other for years, and he was always around. Funny, easygoing, the kind of guy you could count on to grab a drink or crash at your place after a late night out. We were close, or at least I thought we were. Everything seemed normal. We'd hang out, do favors for each other, the usual stuff. If he needed help, I'd be there. No questions asked. You don't think twice when it's someone you trust. But then, little by little, things started feeling off. It wasn't anything obvious at first, just small things. A few side glances from people we both knew, the occasional weird vibe at parties. You know how you can tell when people are whispering about you. I brushed it off. I didn't think much of it because, well, why would I? Everything with Jake seemed fine. Then, one night, I heard it. I walked into this party, and as I was heading toward the back, I overheard two people talking. Laughing, really. I wasn't paying much attention until I heard my name. They were talking about how Jake had been using me. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I stopped dead in my tracks, pretending I hadn't heard them. But in that moment, everything clicked. Suddenly, all those times Jake needed something from me came flooding back. The times I'd lent him money, covered for him, helped him out when he was in trouble. At the time, it seemed harmless, just a friend helping a friend. But now, hearing these people gossip about how I'd been played, I realized I'd been blind. It wasn't just one favor here or there. It was a pattern. Jake had been taking advantage of me, and I never saw it. The worst part? It seemed like everyone else knew. Everyone except me. That's the thing about gossip. People love to talk when they're not the ones being hurt. And apparently, I had been the topic of conversation for a while. Everyone had seen it happening, and no one thought to tell me. Instead, they laughed about it behind my back, like I was some kind of fool. I confronted Jake a few days later. I asked him straight up, "Were you using me?" He didn't even try to deny it. That's what stung the most. He just shrugged, like it wasn't a big deal, like he knew all along and figured I'd never figure it out. I was furious, hurt. I couldn't believe I let myself get played like that, especially by someone I thought I could trust. But it's a lesson, right? You think you know people, but you never really know who's taking advantage of your kindness until the mask slips, or until you hear it through the grapevine. Looking back, I feel stupid for not seeing it sooner. But you learn. You get smarter. Now I'm a lot more careful about who I trust, and I pay attention to the little things, the signs I ignored before. Because sometimes, the people who seem closest to you are the ones you need to watch the most.
The Life of Raymond, a legacy of hard work and kindness. Raymond Fletcher was the kind of man people admired. He'd spent his entire life working hard, taking pride in the fact that every penny he earned was the result of his dedication. Born in a small town, Raymond's family wasn't wealthy, but they instilled in him the value of honesty, hard work, and helping others. It was these values that guided Raymond throughout his life, shaping him into a man everyone respected. From a young age, Raymond was no stranger to work. He started at the local mechanic shop when he was just 16, learning the trade from his father and the older men who took him under their wing. Over the years, he built a reputation for being reliable, trustworthy, and kind. If you had a problem with your car, you could bring it to Raymond, and not only would he fix it, but he'd do it with a smile, always making sure to check in on how you were doing. But Raymond wasn't just a man of work. He had a soft spot for creativity. While his hands were often covered in grease, his mind was always drawn to the arts. He admired artists, musicians, and dreamers. Although Raymond wasn't an artist himself, he had a deep respect for people who dared to create. He believed that creativity was essential to the human spirit, and he quietly supported local artists, attending their shows, buying their work, and encouraging their dreams. By the time Raymond was in his 50s, he had saved enough money to open his own auto repair shop. It wasn't fancy, but it was his. He built it from the ground up, with sweat and long hours, working 6 days a week to ensure its success. His shop became a staple in the community, and Raymond was known not only for his skill, but for the way he treated people. He gave fair prices, often cutting a deal for those who couldn't afford the repairs. He had a soft heart, and sometimes people would take advantage of his kindness, but Raymond never minded. "Better to be too kind than too hard," he would often say. As Raymond grew older, his success allowed him to start thinking about his legacy. He had built a life that he was proud of, but he didn't have children of his own. Instead, he poured his energy into helping the younger generation. He began mentoring local kids, teaching them not just about mechanics, but about life. He taught them that hard work, integrity, and kindness were the keys to a fulfilling life. It was around this time that Raymond began to dream of creating something bigger. He envisioned an arts and trades center for the town, a place where young people could learn skills like mechanics, woodworking, painting, and music. It would be a haven for creativity and craftsmanship, a place where the old and young could come together and share their knowledge. It was his way of giving back to the community that had supported him for so long.
The arrival of Samuel, a new opportunity.
One day, Raymond met Samuel, a younger man who had recently moved to town. Samuel was charismatic, full of big ideas, and passionate about art and community, just like Raymond. They met at a local art gallery, and Raymond found himself drawn to Samuel's energy. Samuel spoke of starting an online platform that would connect small towns like theirs to the broader art world. It was an idea that lit a spark in Raymond. The thought of helping his community's artists and tradespeople reach a global audience was something he hadn't considered before. Samuel was enthusiastic and seemed genuine. He spoke at length about how the platform would work, how it would elevate local artists and craftsmen, and how it would give Raymond's dream of an arts and trades center the exposure it needed. Samuel shared Raymond's vision of supporting creativity, and for Raymond, it felt like he had finally found the person who could help bring his dreams to life. They spent months talking about the project. Samuel showed Raymond business plans, potential investor contacts, and even mock-ups of the platform's website. It all looked promising. Samuel wasn't just pitching an idea. He was painting a picture of what the future could look like. And Raymond couldn't help but believe in it. For the first time in years, Raymond felt excited about the possibilities ahead. He had been cautious with his money his entire life. But this felt different. It wasn't just an investment. It was a chance to leave behind something truly meaningful. So, despite his usual careful nature, Raymond decided to invest a significant portion of his savings into Samuel's project. At first, everything seemed to be progressing smoothly. Samuel kept Raymond updated, showing him incremental progress and telling him about meetings with potential investors. Raymond felt good about his decision, like his hard work was finally paying off in a way that would benefit future generations. But then, things started to change. Samuel became harder to reach. Weeks would go by without an update, and when Raymond called, he was met with excuses about how busy things were or how deals were still being negotiated. Samuel assured Raymond that everything was fine, but the more time passed, the more uneasy Raymond felt. It wasn't until one day, when Raymond tried to log into the online platform Samuel had shown him, that he realized something was very wrong. The website was gone, completely vanished. Raymond tried calling Samuel, but his phone was disconnected. Emails bounced back. Panic set in as Raymond realized the truth. Samuel had disappeared, taking Raymond's money with him. Raymond had been scammed. The shock hit him hard. It wasn't just the financial loss, though that alone was devastating. It was the betrayal. For a man who had built his entire life on trust, honesty, and integrity, this felt like a deep wound. How could he have been so foolish? How could someone he trusted so completely, someone who shared his vision for the community, have deceived him like this?
Fallout.
Word spread quickly through town. People whispered about Raymond's loss, wondering how someone so smart, so experienced, could have fallen for a scam. Some were sympathetic, but others saw it as a lesson, one that Raymond should have known better than to ignore. His friends tried to comfort him, but Raymond could see the doubt in their eyes. It wasn't just his money that was gone. It was the trust people had in him, in his judgment. His plans for the Arts and Trades Center fell apart. Without the funds he had invested, there was no way to move forward. His dream, once so close to becoming a reality, crumbled before his eyes. The worst part for Raymond wasn't the financial hit, though that was painful enough. It was the shift in how he saw the world. A man who had spent his entire life believing in the goodness of people now felt cynical, wary of anyone who approached him with a smile or a new idea. His outlook on life changed. Where he once saw potential and hope, he now saw risk and the possibility of betrayal. His future plans were shattered, and with them, the light in Raymond's heart dimmed. He became more withdrawn, less involved in the community he had once loved so much. The betrayal had taken more than just his money. It had taken his belief in the goodness of people. Months passed, and Raymond found himself at a crossroads. He could either let this experience define the rest of his life, or he could try to rebuild. It wasn't easy. The financial loss was significant, but it was the emotional toll that weighed most heavily on him. He couldn't help but replay every conversation with Samuel in his mind, wondering how he had missed the warning signs. But Raymond was nothing if not resilient. Slowly, he began to piece his life back together. He started by reaching out to the people who had always supported him, the local artists, the young tradespeople he had mentored. They rallied around him, reminding him of the good he had done for so many years. Though the dream of the Arts and Trade Center was gone, Raymond found solace in smaller ways. He began teaching again, offering free classes at his shop to anyone who wanted to learn. He may not have built the center he envisioned, but he still had knowledge to share, still had something to give. And through that giving, Raymond began to heal. He would never be the same man he was before the scam. The experience had changed him, made him more cautious, more guarded. But it also reminded him of the strength that had carried him through life, his work ethic, his kindness, and his resilience. He had been knocked down, but he wasn't out. And though his trust in people had been shaken, it wasn't completely gone. Raymond's legacy, in the end, wouldn't be a grand arts center. It would be the lives he touched, the skills he passed on, and the kindness he showed, even when it wasn't returned. Raymond's story is a reminder that success isn't just about money or fame. It's about the way you live your life, the people you help along the way, and the resilience you show when life knocks you down. Raymond's hard work and kind heart carried him through life. But even the most trusting and good-hearted people can be taken advantage of. His future plans may have been derailed, but in the end, he found a way to continue his legacy. Not through grand gestures, but through the quiet, steady work of helping others. In the end, Raymond learned that while trust can be broken, it can also be rebuilt, slowly, cautiously, but with purpose. And that is where real success lies.
Wrong deal. I had no idea how I ended up in that alley, sweating through my shirt, clutching a small package that now felt like a time bomb ticking in my hand. My trip to Bangkok had started out innocent enough: temple visits, street food, and a few beers with fellow travelers. But somewhere along the way, curiosity and a bit of overconfidence led me to make the worst mistake of my life. It all started in a dimly lit bar tucked away in one of those labyrinthine back streets where tourists and locals blur together. I was sitting at the bar, nursing a cheap beer, when a guy slid onto the stool next to me. He had that look, grungy but not unkempt, like someone who knew the city a little too well. "You here long?" he asked, his accent a mix of British and something else. His eyes were sharp, almost predatory, but I didn't notice at the time. "Couple more days," I said, nonchalant. I had one of those traveler's bravados, the kind that comes from surviving a few sketchy situations and assuming you'll always land on your feet. He introduced himself as Dean, though I doubt that was his real name. We made small talk, and he bought me another drink. Then, after a while, the conversation shifted. "You interested in making a little extra cash?" His tone was casual, but his eyes never left mine. I should have walked away. Every instinct should have screamed at me to make an excuse, leave the bar, and never look back. But the beer had dulled my judgment, and part of me, a reckless part, was curious. "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning in. Dean smirked, like he'd reeled me in just the way he wanted. "Look, it's nothing major. I need someone to carry a small package for me to Phuket. No big deal. You're flying there anyway, right?" I hesitated. "What kind of package?" He waved a hand dismissively. "Just some stuff for a friend. Don't worry about it, mate. It's not what you think." But, of course, it was exactly what I thought. I wasn't an idiot. I knew he was asking me to be a mule, to smuggle something illegal, but he played it off so smoothly, like it was no big deal, just a quick way to make a couple $1,000s. And that's what got me, the money. I was running low on funds, and the idea of making some easy cash seemed too good to pass up. "How much?" I asked, my voice quieter now, cautious. $5,000, he said without blinking. "Half now, half when you land. All you gotta do is take this package with you. No one's gonna check you. You're just a tourist." The next day, I found myself back at that same bar. But this time, Dean was waiting for me with a small, tightly wrapped package. It was heavier than I expected, and the weight of it immediately made me feel like I'd made a colossal mistake. I didn't even ask what was inside. I didn't want to know. "Just keep it in your carry-on," Dean said, eyes glinting under the low bar lights. "Stay calm, act natural, and you'll be fine. See ya on the other side." As I walked out of the bar and into the thick, humid air of Bangkok, my heart started to pound. It didn't stop. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning in the cheap hotel bed, thinking about everything that could go wrong. The images kept flashing in my mind: getting stopped at security, hauled into some dingy interrogation room, slapped with charges I wouldn't even understand until they threw me into a foreign prison. But there was another voice too, a reckless, insistent voice. It told me I was overreacting, that it was no big deal, just another thrill, another story to tell. I'd be in and out of Phuket in a few days, with $5,000 in my pocket and no one the wiser. The next morning, I walked through Suvarnabhumi Airport, sweat prickling at the back of my neck. I tried to act casual, blending in with the stream of tourists, but everything felt wrong. I was hyper-aware of every security camera, every uniformed officer standing by the gates. At the check-in counter, the clerk smiled at me, and I forced myself to smile back. I felt like I had neon signs all over me, flashing guilty,